Today we're going to talk about how to tech a Formula Junior kart. So this video is intended to train tech inspectors on how to inspect a kart similar to this. Not all items that you would want in tech are going to be covered today. We're just hitting the highlights of the safety items. The procedure we're going to go through for the junior kart can also be applied to an adult kart, as they have the same functional parts. The tech inspector should consult the applicable portion of the solar rules for complete details. Junior karts are also a supplemental class, and the requirements may have changed from the release of this video or throughout the year, so be sure to keep up on those fast tracks. Also, again, this video does not include examples of all models of karts. Think of this as one prototypical example, but the parts you see here, you can make the logical leap to what it will look like on a kart that may be coming through your tech line. So when we look at the steering wheel, we want to check everything that goes from the kid's hands all the way down to the tire on the ground. So that includes the bolts that hold the steering wheel to the hub, the bolt that holds the hub onto the steering shaft, the bolts and nuts that hold the tie rod onto the steering shaft, both on the inboard and the outboard side, the kingpin bolt that goes through the frame that holds the spindle to the kart, making sure that the nut normally on the bottom or potentially on the top is nylocked, and then all the way out to the spindle bolt that holds the entire wheel assembly onto the kart. All of that hardware needs to have a positive engagement. So that means a nylock, safety wired cutter pin, circlip, snap ring, metal lock ring, keep nuts, Nord lock, or other means of positively attaching this, so none of these bolts can back out and come off. So that goes follow from the hands all the way down. Next item to look at is going to be the braking and the throttle system. So on a kart, the throttle is on the right, brake is on the left. We want to make sure that both these pedals move smoothly and there's no binding in them. There's a bolt that holds the brake and the throttle assembly onto the frame. We want to make sure while it's positively connected, it's not binding, to ensure that these move smoothly forward and rear. On the throttle, often there'll be a supplemental spring to help return the throttle. In general, we shouldn't rely on the throttle spring that's back in the carburetor to ensure the throttle closes. So again, with the brakes, we're following from the child's foot all the way back to the braking caliper. So we want to look at that this bolt here has correct nuts on it to hold it in place, that it moves smoothly, that we have clamps on the pin that goes through here, the pins in the back. Ensure that the master cylinder is correctly attached to the frame. We also want to check that there is a redundant means, not just the rod, but a second means of connecting the brake pedal to the master cylinder, typically a cable. When you pull the brakes with one hand, either you or a partner can try and rotate the tire. You should not be able to rotate it with a fair amount of clamping force. On the back, ensure that, again, the caliper is adequately connected to the frame, and that bolts have appropriate fasteners. Nylocks are not recommended on the hub itself due to heat. One other note while you're up here is looking at the pedal extensions. This kart has some round pedal extensions to give extra grip. They're secured using two nuts that go into the pedal itself. While this is adequate for a round pedal extension like this, if the kart you're inspecting has a pedal extension that comes out any distance, such that rotating would affect the child's ability to reach the pedal, they need to be positively engaged with a bolt that would go into the pedal itself. Consult the autocross rules for the current requirements for securing a pedal of that type. Coming around to the back of the kart, we need to make sure there's a chain guard. Typically these are plastic or metal that will shield the chain both from any pressure on it, but primarily in case the chain comes loose to make sure it's not ejected. And the last thing to look at, generally all over the kart, is weights. They're typically a child will need to add some weight to the cart in order to meet the minimum weights in the class. It's important that they're positively attached with a through bolt, typically either through the seat or a part of the frame. There's some special requirements on these. So these bolts need to be at least 5/16 of an inch in diameter or 8 millimeter. They need to be either SAE grade 5 or metric 8.8. We want to make sure that there's a washer on both sides to make sure it doesn't pull through. And again, a secure fastener, nylock, lock wire, etc. The last item, kind of coming back to the steering wheel here, and this is new for 2018, is the requirement to have a kill switch. A kill switch is a device that will actuate the ignition interrupt on the motor. So if the throttle gets stuck and the motor's running away, they'll be able to kill the ignition. This cart has a push button type ignition that positively locks. Whatever method is used, either a toggle or a button, it needs to be in plain view of the child and within easy reach. Today that means either on the steering wheel, such as this, on the uprights that come off the gas tank here, which is easier to reach in some carts, as there may be a plate, or up on the fairing here. World Formula motors come with a kill switch on top of the motor itself. While this can remain here, it cannot be the only means of stopping the cart. We need to have a second means. The kill switch that's on the steering wheel, gas tank uprights, or the fairing, and an easy reach of the child is required. Overall, those are the main safety items we want to look at with a cart. It's also just wise to use common sense, look at the cart overall. Not always, tech inspectors are very good at seeing things that the operator may not see every day. So anything that looks out of the ordinary is worth pointing out to the parent to put operation on it. Making sure things are tight in steering, making sure that your wheels are tight and get hands on. So in summary, autocross is all about having fun and being with family. The items we've talked about today are not optional. These are items that SCCA has worked with to ensure that you have a fun, safe time with your cart. Again, rules can change because this is a supplemental class, so ensure you continue to read the fast tracks and keep up to date, as what we've talked about today may have changed by the time you've seen this video. And remember, all carts will not look like this cart, but they'll have the same pictures. So use common sense and take what we've talked about today and apply it to the carts you see. Thank you.